Alright, so what I wanted to do today was kind of look at Resident Evil 3 Remake and kind of look at it from a different perspective. I know the game gets a lot of hate for a lot of justifiable reasons, and it is definitely, I would agree, the weaker of the remakes we have. But I want to take a different kind of look at it and look at it for what it is, rather than what it could have been. I've made a lot of videos lately where the game has been briefly mentioned and is relevant to the topic at hand, and people are saying, it is not a good game, and I disagree. I think it's a good game, but it's very different from the original. There is a lot of stuff missing, and a lot of things that are changed. And I've made videos talking about that stuff before, but what I want to do in this one is kind of look at what we have and kind of pick out some of the praise and the things they did right with it. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So we'll start with the character, I suppose. So Jill in the remake is kind of similar to what they did with Leon in Resident Evil 4 remake. She's very kind of traumatized by the events of the first game. Obviously the game opens up with her having a nightmare of her turning into a zombie, and it clearly has had an impact. The whole mansion incident must have really kind of stuck with someone, and it makes sense that it would, because I think a normal person going through that type of thing, obviously it's not real, but if it was to happen, it would be quite a traumatic experience. And it's the same with Leon as well. In Resident Evil 4 remake, he mentions how he can't forget it, and it's always there, and he wants things to be different. So yeah, it's obvious to the two of them that the events of Raccoon City are very much present with Leon, and the events of the mansion incident are very much affecting Jill in this game as well. So I like that kind of direction they've gone with, and how it's affected them on a different level. What I kind of remember of the original 3 and the original 4 is, yes, I do mention it, but you don't really see it have a big effect on them, and it's a lot more noticeable in the remake versions. And I think with that as well, it's made the characters a lot more kind of human, and they definitely feel a lot better in the remakes compared to the original versions. Obviously the original Leon takes it a little bit less seriously, but with the remake it's a lot more serious, and I think that's definitely the case with Resident Evil 3 as well. I know Resident Evil 3 original was a lot more serious game compared to original Resident Evil 4, but the character just feels a lot more grounded compared to the original games. Alright, so in terms of the gameplay, one thing to say about the Resident Evil 3 remake is it's very short, but what we do have in terms of a gameplay level is quite good. So obviously the game is a little bit faster paced than the 2 remake, but slower paced than the 4 remake. Obviously you've got Jill's OP dodge, which makes a lot of the hard difficulties a bit trivial if you get really good at it. So it's more of a skill thing. So the better you get at the dodge, the easier the certain encounters become, and the more efficient you'll play. And you just follow the same formula as the original games. You are very limited at first with what you have, and over time you find more weapons and stuff like that. But with the game being smaller, everything's a lot easier to find. There's not a lot of backtracking to do, because each zone is quite small, and there's no massive backtracking. You can't go from the end of the game to the start areas of the game as well as you could in Resident Evil 2 remake, which allowed you to go all the way back to the police station just before you enter the nest, which is the point of no return part of the game. But that being said, the areas we have are pretty good. So obviously you got the Raccoon City street section, which is the early part of the game, which feels quite good. There's some varying areas of different kind of scale and difficulty, and there's introductions of puzzles and enemies, as well as Nemesis there as well, every now and again. But we'll talk about Nemesis in a moment. Other parts of the game, obviously you've got the sewer section, which is quite small, but still quite well done. You've got the RPD, which, to be honest, I can't really say is a new area, because it's pretty much just the exact same layout as the 2 remake, and you are playing as Carlos, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. And then obviously you have the hospital section, which is quite good. I really do like the hospital section. You play as Carlos and Jill in that section, so it does feel quite different between the two. And then obviously you've got the underground lab section, which is quite short in this game, but still feels quite good. They're all well made, but they're just very short sections compared to the 2 remake. Going back to Nemesis in the 3 remake, he's very scripted compared to the original game, and the option to either kind of run or fight isn't really a thing in this game, because if you fight him, you'll just stun him, and eventually he'll get up and move again anyway. But with the original game, you could kind of beat him and he would stop for a little bit. Obviously, the encounters you had in the original game, they weren't scripted, but they were random. There was always these set locations he would spawn in, but it wouldn't happen at that time. It would be completely random. With the remake, though, it is literally scripted to happen at that exact point, depending on your progression. So it kind of, on the first run through, it feels good, but after that, you know when it's coming, so you can kind of prepare for it. I mean, this was at a time when pursuer enemies were in every Resident Evil game, and I made a video about it before the 4 remake came out, hoping that it wouldn't be the case, that there wouldn't be another one, and luckily there isn't one in RE4, because it was getting to a point where they were kind of overdone, and again, they're good and fun for like a first few runs, but after that, you can either figure them out perfectly and know exactly how to avoid them, or they just get in the way, and it's pretty annoying, so I'm glad that 4 doesn't have one. But to be honest, the Nemesis encounters you have, there's not many of them, it doesn't appear much, and a lot of the time in the remake, he's just kind of a boss rush. But no, the fights we have with him, in terms of the boss fights, they're all quite good, they're all quite unique. I think the second and third boss fight are very similar, but enough of a difference is there to have you beat him in a different way. But the first fight and the last fight are pretty cool too, but the biggest issue I have with it is just the scripted kind of sections of him chasing you around. It is good, it is definitely fun for the first few attempts and the first few runs, but after that it does become a bit stale, but it's not a bad thing. You know, it was a thing that was in every RE game at the time, so it's not necessarily a bad thing at all. Jumping to Carlos's sections, again, they're fun, they're very action focused, they're very easy. No matter what difficulty you're playing on, I feel like Carlos's sections are quite easy, but it makes sense for the character. You know, he's kind of kitted out, ready to go, he's in military gear, he's got weapons, you know, it's going to be easy. You've got a machine gun. I think any Resident Evil game that gives you a machine gun makes it 10 times easier. That being said though, they are fun. You know, Carlos's character is well done in the remake. You're going through the RPD as him and seeing things get set up before Leon turns up is cool. I think going through the hospital with him is also pretty good as well. And in general, his kind of sections are fun. But again, they're kind of action sequences on purpose because of his character, I think. But in terms of anything else in the game that I really liked, the difficulty selections are really good. Obviously, you've got Assisted, Standard, and Hardcore, and then after that, you've got Nightmare and Inferno. Inferno is ridiculous. On our first playthrough, it's a lot of fun, it's a big challenge, and honestly, some of the stuff that happens is crazy. If you played Inferno, you'll know what I mean. And yeah, you've also got all the challenge runs you can do, you know, the speed run, the do on every difficulty, get the S pluses, all that kind of stuff, and it does make the game replayable. It's just the game isn't huge, and it's not long, and a lot is cut, but what we do have, I think, is enjoyable. Is it a good remake? Probably not, but it's still a fun game to play. But just want to throw it out there, the game's not completely terrible. I know a lot of people say it's just shit and it's bad. It isn't bad, it isn't shit, it's just the weaker of the bunch. But let me know what you think down below. Do you like the game? Do you not? Do you want to see it kind of improved in some way? Let me know, obviously, what you want to see. If it was to be improved, I know it's unlikely now, but if you were to kind of say this is what would make it better, let me know. But as always, thank you all for watching. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more Resident Evil content. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.